In the heart of the North Sea, where the waves never rest and the sky is always a cold grey, giant European trawlers plough the sea day and night. It is a world where the sound of engines, the screech of cables and the splashing of fish on the deck have become a familiar soundtrack. On those tens of meters long ships, tons of seafood are brought up from the ocean floor every day, a power of man over nature. A blend of hardship, technology, and a pride in the sea that has been passed down through many generations. The sky has not yet dawned, but the fishing port on the Dutch coast has begun to bustle. Men in waterproof jackets, their faces tanned by the sun, holding cups of hot coffee. They chat and observe the weather through the radar screen. Today the sea is slightly rough. The wind is northwest. The water temperature is 10 degrees Celsius, ideal conditions for a long voyage. The trawl ship, Ocean Star, was about to leave the port, with more than 10 sailors and a captain with more than 20 years of experience. At the stern of the ship, 2 giant nets were folded like steel dragons, ready to be released into the vast ocean. As the bow of the ship cut away from the waves, the shore lights gradually faded. The sea opened up, calm but full of challenges. Captain Henning stood in the cockpit, his eyes following the electronic map. Today's fishing area is in Area 7D, 180 meters deep. He said. Everyone understood. This is one of the richest waters for herring and pollock in Europe. The winch was started, steel cables weighing several tons slowly lowered, carrying 2 giant nets. Each mesh was as thick as a wrist, specially designed to withstand the pulling force of dozens of tons for many hours. The sound of metal friction rang out loudly. Seawater splashed. The nets opened like giant wings, sweeping across the seabed. Streams of mud and sand were lifted up by the current. Schools of fish were sucked into the vortex, then gradually gathered into the net bag. This process could last 4 to 6 hours, depending on the density of the fish. In the control room, the sonar sensors continuously displayed. When dense bright spots appeared, everyone knew that the net had eaten fish. On deck, the smell of oil, salt, and metal mixed. A sailor named Lucas, in his early 20s, was pulling the anchor rope taut, his eyes following the cable as taut as a guitar string. If the cable breaks, it could rip off your arm, he said. His voice serious. This was more than just a job, it was a fight with nature, with danger lurking every minute. In the temperature of just a few degrees offshore, a slip or a strong pull could be enough to kill a person. Time passed, and when the sun was high in the sky, the signal from the sonar signaled that the net bag was full. The captain ordered, "Pull the net." The winch engine roared. The steel cable slowly turned, pulling the net weighing hundreds of tons. The ship shook from time to time. Wave after wave crashed against the side. The sea water splashed white. The entire crew tensed up to work, their hands gripping the rope, their eyes never leaving the net that was slowly rising from the water. Then, in the middle of the foaming water, a giant black mass appeared. It was a round net bag, as big as a small house, filled with wriggling fish. The fishy smell was strong. Hundreds of tons of fish, herring, pollock, cod, flounder, mixed together, glittering silver in the sunlight. The whole deck echoed with cheers. They knew this was a golden catch. As the net bag was pulled close to the deck, the discharge gate opened. The stream of fish poured down onto the deck, like a waterfall. The sound of fish splashing, the sound of running water, the voices of people shouting mixed with the sound of the machine, a chaotic but vibrant scene. The automatic sorting machine was turned on. Tons of fish slid down the conveyor belt, separated by size and type, large fish for export, small fish for the processing plant. The sailors used iron rakes to remove the fish. Others checked, weighed, and recorded. Everything happened quickly, like a perfectly functioning machine. Captain Hennings smiled, his eyes shining with pride. Each haul like this, nearly 200 tons of fish. He said, "We'll pull in 4 or 5 more times this trip." The number was overwhelming, but for them, it was the result of years of experience, modern fishing techniques, and an unyielding spirit. It was the cold noon at sea. Everyone took the opportunity to quickly eat a hot meal, just a few slices of stewed fish with bread, and then returned to deck. The winch continued to work. The second net was dropped. In the open sea, seagulls circled, screeching. Schools of live fish leaped wildly, some escaping from the deck and falling back into the sea, creating a foaming spray. Other ships of the fleet appeared in the distance, white dots on a blue-gray background. Each trawl was like a giant machine, pulling 2 steel net doors weighing tons, keeping the net mouth wide open. This technique, called bottom trawling, was widely used throughout Europe, from the North Sea, the Atlantic, to the Norwegian North Sea. Millions of tons of fish were caught each year, supplying the entire continent. But behind those huge nets are human stories. Each sailor carries with them longing for home, family, and a bit of loneliness. At night, the sea is numbingly cold. They take turns on watch, eyes glued to the radar, ready to pull in the nets at any moment. The yellow light shines down on the deck, illuminating tired but strong faces. In that vast space, there is only the sound of the engine and the waves to keep them company. On the third night at sea, the wind began to pick up. High waves were rolling over the ship, hitting the deck like walls of water. The sky was pitch black, and lightning flashed in the distance through the misty rain. On the Ocean Star, everyone tightened their mooring lines, checked their nets. A small storm was moving quickly from the north, and they knew it well. On days like this, the sea was no longer gentle, but no one was allowed to stop. Every hour meant money, production, the survival of the whole trip. Captain Henning looked at the radar screen. Fast-moving red spots, those were big waves. Hold course 215 degrees. Reduce main engine speed. Prepare to pull nets, he ordered. Below deck, the diesel engines roared steadily. The smell of oil and hot iron filled the air. Men in thick raincoats, their safety belts hooked tightly to the railings, moved toward the winch area. The steel cables creaked, taut as if about to snap, while the ship listed violently. A slip here could mean someone disappearing forever under the cold waves. In the middle of a storm, pulling the net was a test of survival. Waves were more than 3 meters high. The wind was howling. When the net was lowered, it was like a metal monster swallowed by the sea. The water was white, screams, and the sound of the machine mixed together. Everyone was absolutely focused. No one said much. Their whole world was now just the cable, the net, and the sea. After more than 4 hours of struggling, the sonar signal lit up again. The net was full. Once again, the giant mass was pulled up. Each meter of wet cable rolled back to the winch. When the net bag emerged, the headlights shone, reflecting off the thousands of silver fish bodies that glittered in the rain. It was a strange scene, both fierce and breathtakingly beautiful. The net bag fell to the deck. Hundreds of tons of fish spilled out. The waves rolled with the fish. The water was ankle deep. The shouts of men mingled with the waves, as men pushed fish aside and kept their balance. Cod, pollock, herring, flounder, even squid and stone crabs, all of them came rushing out like waterfalls. In a matter of minutes, the deck became a small ocean, teeming with life. Lucas laughed loudly in the wind, his hair wet, his eyes shining. "We've hit it big," he shouted. In the control room, Hennings kept his eyes on the screen. He knew that each net this heavy could break the cable, or if pulled too fast, tear the net and lose everything. He adjusted the speed, ordered the winch to stop at the right time. Safety first, fish later, he liked to say. For this captain, every voyage was more than a way to make a living, it was a way to keep everyone coming back. The storm lasted all night. The ship pitched in the wind. Seawater lapping on deck, chilling to the bone. Some men couldn't take it anymore. Seasick, vomiting, then getting up to work again. No one was allowed to rest. The fish was piling up, and had to be processed immediately if they were to avoid spoilage. The sorting machines ran non-stop. The fish were passed through automatic conveyor belts, washed in cold seawater, and then transferred to the storage hold. Below deck, the temperature was just 0 degrees Celsius. Blocks of ice were crushed and mixed with salt to keep the fish fresh for days. Larger fish barrels filled the hold, each block frozen white. Lucas and Eric, 2 young sailors, were in charge of the fish packing area. Their hands were chapped and red from the salt water and the cold. Nodded. Me too. It felt like I was touching the life of the sea. Offshore, the sky began to lighten. After the storm, the sea turned a silvery gray. The seagulls returned, circling the ship, waiting for the fish scraps to fall. The crew was exhausted, but not yet able to rest. Jennings decided to cast one more net before heading south. That was when the sea was calmest, and the fish were usually at their most dense. That afternoon, when the last net was pulled up, everyone was smiling. Nearly 180 tons of fish were brought into the hold. In total, they had caught more than 900 tons of fish, a huge number for a week at sea. The atmosphere on deck was filled with excitement. Some people turned on the radio, playing old sea folk music, sad but powerful melodies, echoing across the vast cold sea. In the evening, they celebrated. A large pot of fish soup was cooked right on deck. Steam rose. The aroma spread. Everyone laughed, talked, told stories of life, of wives and perfect levels. The frozen fish were labeled, sorted, and ready for the refrigerated trucks to pick them up when they arrived. Some special fish, like large cod, were selected separately. to be auctioned at the Rotterdam fish market, where each beautiful fish can be worth hundreds of euros. Three days later, the rows of Dutch coastal warehouses appeared in the distance. The port of Scheveningen was bustling again. The ship's whistle sounded, signaling the return trip. Relatives stood on the shore, waving. When the ship docked, the smell of fish, oil, and cold air mixed together, a distinctive aroma only found in old fishing ports. Each crate of fish was lifted down and loaded onto the trucks. Buyers, agents, and even inspectors were waiting. Weight, temperature, quality, everything was carefully recorded. Henning signed the delivery book, a small smile on his sunburned face. "We did well," he said. That night, the crew had a break. They dined in a small portside restaurant, where they served fried cod, made from the fish they had just caught. Laughter, clinking glasses, the sea breeze whistling outside the window. They knew that in a few days, they would have to set sail again. The sea never stops, and neither does this business. But in each of them there was a belief that they were part of the eternal cycle, of the vast ocean that fed all of Europe. On the wall of the restaurant, there was an old photograph, wooden trawlers from the 1960s. Small but proud, Hennings looked at the photo and said softly, "My grandfather drove one like that. He died at sea, in a storm. From then on, I understood that the sea does not give anything for free, but if you respect it, it will give you back many times over." That sentence, in the middle of a cold, windy night, made the whole table silent for a long time. Further north, where the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans meet, temperatures can drop below zero and winds can blow for days on end, is where the giant ships operate, steel giants that haul deep-sea nets. Europeans call them super trawlers, machines that are more than 100 meters long, as high as an 8-story building, and can hold thousands of tons of fish in their tanks. Ships like the Anneliese Lena, Atlantic Dawn, or Akkerberg are not just fishing boats. They are floating factories where fish are caught, sorted, cooled and frozen within minutes of leaving the water. Every time the ship sets sail, the scene is overwhelming. Dozens of technical workers work at the same time. The sound of the engine roars. Hundreds of meters of cable coils like steel snakes. Behind the stern, the mouth of the giant net is opened wide, so large that it can swallow a small building. A net door weighing tens of tons keeps the mouth of the net open, pulling it down to a depth of hundreds of meters below the seabed. When the net is lowered, the ship seems to drag a mobile wall sweeping across the ocean floor. Inside the control room, radar, sonar, and GPS screens work continuously. The captain and engineers observe each bright spot, each line of data showing fish density, depth, current, and wind direction. Decisions about when to lower or pull the net are now based on satellite data. We can know exactly where the fish are moving, at what depth, said an Icelandic engineer, and that helps us optimize every meter of net. But technology cannot replace human labor. On deck, dozens of sailors still have to stand in the cold wind, seawater splashing in their faces, checking cables, hooking pins, and tending winches. They work in shifts, each lasting 12 hours, alternating between day and night. The temperature was only about 2 to 5 degrees Celsius, but sweat still poured out under the thick clothes because of the terrible intensity of the work. The trawl waits for no one. They often said, when the net went into the sea, everyone had to be ready at all times, whether it was midnight or in the middle of a storm. A haul could last up to 8 hours. When the net began to be pulled up, the whole ship shook. Steel cables weighing tens of tons were stretched like strings. The whistling sound of the winch echoed throughout the deck. From the surface of the water, the giant net gradually rose, the sea spraying white. The scene was both majestic and fierce. And then, like a miracle, hundreds of tons of fish poured out of the mouth of the net, creating a silver stream that sparkled under the high-power headlights. Cheers echoed throughout the deck. It was the sound of joy, of the results after dozens of hours of struggling with the wind and waves. When the stream of fish was poured down, the automatic sorting system began to operate. On the deck of the Akraberg, the fish were passed through conveyor belts dozens of meters long. Laser scanners identify each fish species based on shape and color. Mechanical arms move quickly, pushing the fish into the correct container. Each fish is cut, cleaned, washed in cold salt water, and then transferred to the deep freeze area, where the temperature is just minus 25 degrees Celsius. Within 15 minutes, the fish are perfectly frozen, as fresh as when they were just caught from the water. Below deck, workers continue to package, label, and place the fish in large freezers. The refrigeration system runs around the clock, powered by separate generators. Table-sized blocks of fish are lined up, labeled with QR codes for each trip. Data on catch location, date and time, temperature, depth, all are recorded precisely. When the ship returns to port, the entire shipment is shipped straight to processing plants in Norway, the Netherlands, or Spain, and from there distributed throughout Europe. On the ship, there is no day or night, said a Norwegian sailor named Sindre, wiping away sweat. We work when the fish are there, rest when the sea is calm. But when I see the frozen blocks of fish piled up, I feel proud. It is our work, the sea's work. Sindre said that some voyages last up to 3 months. The ship does not dock, does not stop. Everything happens at sea, eating, sleeping, working, and even small celebrations when someone has a birthday. Food is kept in freezers. Water is recycled from the sea filtration system. There is a gym, a small sauna, but no one uses it much. No one thinks about relaxing when they are pulling hundreds of tons of fish every day. He said, laughing. At night, when their shift ends, some men sit in the dining room, where the warm yellow light shines. They talk, watch TV, or send satellite messages to their families. Outside, the sea was still black, waves still crashing against the side of the ship. Someone was smoking on the railing, the red fire flickering in the wind. No one spoke, just looked out into the distance, where the moonlight reflected on the water. Perhaps, in that moment, they felt the loneliness of the profession, a loneliness that comes with freedom.